Rabbi Asher Mesa, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. My name is Rabbi Meza. I'm based out of South Florida. I run an organization called Torah Judaism International, which could be found at torahjudaism.org. And I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I do something that most Orthodox rabbis don't do. I encourage people to consider becoming Jewish, and I help them along in that process. I consider myself a rational Jew as much as a religious person could be rational, for sure, reasonable. And I love dialoguing. I think people learn the most via dialogue. I really don't like people who only have monologues. So I really appreciate what you do.
Cool. I'm an atheist, by which I mean I believe that there's no evidence for the existence of a God. Could you tell me some of the reasons there are to believe in a God, and particularly Orthodox Judaism?
Mhm. So my famous phrase is that I don't believe in the Torah, in the Jewish scriptures, because of God. I believe in God because of the Jewish scriptures. This God is presented to us as an ethical God, someone who, if one would emulate his or her surroundings, would improve. This is why this book has essentially been the main book, not the only book, but the main book that I would say has civilized the world. And that's probably the main reason to consider following the author of at least the ethical portions of this book. And that's what we call the Torah.
So your argument is that because this book was the most popular in shaping the world, therefore it's
Hmm.
true?
Well, no. Uh, the most, or one of the most ethically influential books. So, meaning that I think because of the society that we live in today, everyone, even atheists, should at least pay tribute to the idea that it's the values within this book that have civilized the world more than any other book, at least consistently. There's many other books that have great values, but you'd have to compare many other books to really compete against this essentially one book of the law. Um, this is why I even encourage atheistical individuals to consider living like there is a God, in particular the God of the Bible, for the sake of their children. Just because people who are religious typically give more money, they donate more time, they're more benevolent, they live richer, fuller lives, and I think that's probably the best reason for someone to consider calling themselves a religious individual. Yeah.
Well, what are we considering exactly? So the fact that the book has helped people shape their understanding of morals or culture, or what exactly is it that indicates that it's true?
I'm not making an argument that it's true, but in life, the choice is typically not between what's utopian and what's horrific, but between what's good and what's better. So I think religion should lie, at least regarding this book, in the fact that this book has helped more than any other particular book civilize the world. Understanding the history of when the Torah was given, it seems that this book was ethically sophisticated, head and shoulders above every other belief system. So it appears at a time where people were behaving like animals, and it introduced a system that was ethically revolutionary at the time. I'm not saying perfectly ethical, but a lot more ethical or consistently ethical in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Code of Hammurabi, the Book of the Dead. So it seems that it must have had some sort of divine source, something
Wait, why?
other than
What's
men.
the
Mm,
what's the connection that leads to a divine source?
because of how consistently ethical it was. Now, I mean, some could say that you could have grabbed the finest ethical minds at the time to produce such a work, but if that was the case, this would have been that work they produced. So it's on that alone, and that would be a statement of faith. And I think that's more far-fetched to assume that perhaps a good God gave us some insight for us to elevate ourselves from the animal. We should pay tribute to that, to the fact that this being cared for us so much that he gave us a higher standard to aspire to, which in some ways should allow us to pay tribute to that fact and kind of care for him almost just as much. And that's kind of like the give and take in, I would say, Judaism. I mean, perhaps you haven't spoken to many Jews. Our belief system differs a bit from Muslims and Christians, although Islam and Christianity are both offshoots of Judaism. But it's more of a belief system where we distinguish ourselves by our actions. And it's a belief system that really cares more about what you do than what you believe. Although it's kind of a catch-22, because why would anyone want to keep this law unless they believed that it came from some sort of divine source. I mean, I take a different approach, like I said. I mean, I
Well,
believe
what do you mean when you said it's morally consistent? What exactly are you talking about?
it's more ethically consistent than any other belief system. Meaning, I'm not going to deny that there's some ethical aspects to other belief systems, but I don't think that the average person could really claim that the Bible hasn't had the most influence. I'm not saying the Bible in particular, but the commandments within the Bible, the individual moral training that's in the Bible.
What do you mean by ethically consistent?
No, more ethically consistent. Meaning there's
What does the
ethical
word
ideas.
what does the word ethically consistent mean? What do those things mean when they're put together? What do you mean by ethically consistent?
There's in a textbook definition. I'm trying to get to give over a descriptive term of a book that has had more ethical influence in society than any other book to at least get us where we are today. I mean, that's what I mean.
So just the fact that it's affected more people?
More societies, yes, and people. I mean, from the
And
national to the personal. Yeah.
why does that matter towards truth? Like at one time it wasn't. There were other books that had more influence at different points in time. So
Well,
and
the
there are
term truth is very subjective. Weigh out the evidence in terms of, I'm not saying the evidence of incidents that may have occurred in the Bible, but just the individual moral training that this book has instituted. I mean, I'm pretty sure you acknowledge that the world is probably a better place because of individuals who adhere to this book, whether it's Christians, Jews, possibly even Muslims, than when people didn't have a bedrock ethical standard to aspire to.
I
Or
don't
would you disagree with
understand.
that?
I don't understand what you mean by that. So like
Mm.
people had moral standards prior to the Abrahamic Bible.
Mhm.
The Abrahamic Bible takes moral standards from other books like the Epic of Gilgamesh and
No,
other
for
different
sure.
tales.
That's what I'm saying. More consistently ethical in terms of this book has been a lot more ethically influential to where we're at today than the Epic of Gilgamesh. And we don't have societies nowadays built off of the Code of Hammurabi, the Epic of Gilgamesh, or the Book of the Dead. They're essentially built off of what we call the Bible, more than any other belief system. I'm not saying the other belief systems are disposable. I'm just saying that it seems that this book has been more influential than the other books. Would you disagree with that?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means. Like I could say Harry Potter has had equally as much influence.
In terms of
Therefore,
ethics?
yes.
You think
Therefore,
so?
we should
Okay.
treat it that way. Treat it some way with some reverence because it has had impacts on millions of people. That's
Mm-mm.
I don't
Well, Harry
understand why
Potter's
that's
not a book
important.
of law. Harry Potter is essentially narrative. In terms of
Well,
law,
from my perspective, so is the Bible. It's nothing but narrative. But I don't understand. I don't understand like what
I mean,
exactly
possibly
you're
the Christian
saying.
Bible, not the Jewish Bible. The Torah, a big chunk of the Torah. As a matter of fact, in the Bible, there's only one section of that Bible that actually claims to be divine, and that's the revelation. According to the narrative, the revelation that was received or began at Mount Sinai and ended at the end of Deuteronomy, of God giving us an ethical code. If you want to compare that to Harry Potter, I mean, go right ahead. But it's hard to deny that many legal systems took their inspiration from this text.
Sure, so did the witch hunts and the Inquisitions and the Crusades, but
Right.
again, I'm not understanding
Right.
like
And our
what your
Constitution as
argument
well.
is.
Okay.
No, that's actually against the Bible in many ways. There's actually a number of different studies that have been done that shows the most of the Constitution is secular values moving away from the Christian values of the time period. I don't
I didn't say
understand.
I didn't say it was built solely off the Bible, but it was influenced mainly from the Bible. Our founding
No, it
fathers
was
were
influenced
deists.
mainly from secularism. Thomas Paine was not influenced by the Bible at all. He did not believe. Most of the founding fathers did not believe in the Bible, and most of the values
The
don't
vast
come from the
majority, hold
Bible.
on, okay, all right. So then like, we could discuss opinion, we can't discuss fact. The vast majority of our founding fathers were deists. Deists were individuals that believed in biblical values to some extent. I
No,
understand the Jefferson Bible.
just believe means you believe in a God. It doesn't mean you believe in a
No,
Christian God. Like
as a term, but the early founders were Christian deists. This is why the Jefferson Bible is essentially the Christian Bible without the miracles included,
no,
because
that's
they
false. So you don't get an opinion on that. We know for a fact most of them did not believe in the Christian concept of a
okay,
God. Most of them
all right.
rejected that.
So
They were
we'll let
very
the
secular.
audience.
Like Thomas Paine
Okay,
was an
I
atheist.
I mean it's
But
okay. I
again,
mean okay. Go ahead.
I don't understand the
Mhm.
relevance here. Like saying that there was a book that was the most popular, therefore we should I don't know what you're
Pay
trying to say
tribute.
we should do. What does
Pay
that
tribute.
mean? What does that mean?
Pay tribute. that we acknowledge where our values come from primarily. And by doing that, this gives us a semblance of the God this Bible is presenting to us, an ethical, just God that we should strive to emulate. I'm not saying the Bible's perfect, okay? And I'm not trying to make that argument to an atheist who doesn't believe in the Bible. I'm just saying that the first step to appreciating the God of the Bible is acknowledging his ethical law code and paying tribute on how that code has civilized society. But it seems like you have a hard time even acknowledging that it's done any good.
Well, the Bible at its time did a lot of good. It was at its time revolutionary in the fact that it had moral progress compared to other systems at the time. Now it's morally regressive. So we move past that. It's kind of like a spear. A spear was a phenomenal tool that made lots of benefit at the time. Now we have something significantly better. And so we get rid of the old thing. So, I mean, I understand that there were advancements that religion made in the past that were revolutionary, that had many positive influences at the time. And then after those influences were made, we then made new, better influences that were.
So I consider this progress in this discussion. And I appreciate whether you said this. Now, I would consider this cut flower ethics. Societies that have tried to reinvent the wheel ethically, like the Soviet Union, North Korea, Cuba, Cambodia, we see they only leave a trail of blood and carnage. All right.
I don't care about any of those examples. I care about Norway, Sweden, Japan, Denmark, the United States, places that get rid of all of the bad values. Like saying that there are some bad ones, like I don't care.
So those societies aren't atheistical societies. 50 years ago, 50 years ago, they were almost fully religious.
Yes, and then we left those behind. So I agree. They were religious, and then
it's called cut flower
those.
ethics. Cut flower ethics means someone has a parent, a grandparent that influenced them with biblical values. Now it's easy to claim to be a secular humanist without the Bible when you've been living entrenched in a society that's full of biblical values. That's what
I don't think you understand how progress works. So at one time, most people used the spear. And before that, there was other technologies. There was rocks, right? So if you want to say that our entire society is based on spears, that would be dumb because we don't use spears anymore. Like at one time, yes,
we're talking about ethics. We're not talking about tools here.
I'm trying to explain to you the basic logic here. So at one time, spears were the foundation of our society. We couldn't have survived without spears. Spears were how we lived. They were how we fed ourselves. They're how we defended ourselves. But if you were going to say that our modern society is built on spears, that would be dumb because we haven't used spears for a very long time. We've moved past
this analogy,
spears.
is a bit dumb. No, I'm just saying because you're going on a tangent, but it's not comparable. Spears, the invention of the spear, and ethics in general at a time when people were worshiping stones, it's not ethically comparable.
It is exactly ethically comparable. Now, let me finish and then you can respond. So at one time, we used spears. If you wanted to say our entire society was built on spears, you would be wrong because we used bow and arrows after spears and we used guns after bow and arrows. There are progress we've made since that one time. Focusing on that one time period, which may have been important at that time period, and then saying our entire society is built on the values of spears would be asinine because we've made progress since then. We've moved past that.
Well,
likewise, in ethics, religion was very valuable at the time period thousands of years ago, as it did provide an ethical foundation at that time, just like a spear. But since then, we've evolved past those ideologies. The bad features of religion have been improved upon based on non-religious, secular, humanist values, which is actually the predominant value system in the world right now, which goes against religion. So we've taken the slight amount of progress religion made, which was good for the time, and then we've moved past that. We've improved it more with secular values, which is why the most peaceful societies with the least crime, least death, least murder, least rape are secular societies that go away from religion, that get rid of religion and start adopting secular values independent of religion.
But a simple fact that regarding Scandinavian countries, you acknowledge that around 50 years ago, they were mainly religious. The vast majority of households in America are religious. As a matter of fact, it's been secular movements in the last 150 years that have been responsible for the death of over 180 million souls in the name of throwing away religion and reinventing the world ethically.
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm just going to mute you. So
sure.
That is false. Those are communist movements. They are not secular movements.
You have to let me respond, man. I mean, I let you speak. For 3 minutes.
I'm correcting you. That was the full statement. So those were not secular movements. They were communist movements.
Built on secularism. Socialist movements were predominantly secular.
No, they're not.
What do you mean? So they were built.
They're not. There's no. What are the secular values? What are the secular values implemented in communism?
reinventing the wheel ethically and tossing out the Bible as a
But
standard
where are those written into the book of secularism?
in the Communist Manifesto.
Okay, again, the question is what values in communism were built on secular values? So you can't say, oh, the Communist Manifesto are the secular values.
Oh,
That's
wait a
secular
minute.
reason.
I mean, something.
What
Okay.
secular values,
Okay.
what values in the tome of secularism are the
Mhm.
foundational values of communism?
I'm aligning the phrase atheistical with the phrase secular. For
Right.
some reason, you're making a distinction.
You can't.
Also, then your argument is not for a belief system that doesn't include
Okay.
God.
What you're saying is as stupid as saying a bunch of non-golfers committed the Holocaust.
I'm not saying that what you're saying is stupid. I mean, I'm to use like ad
I'm
hominem.
saying what you're saying is stupid. So if you say that the Holocaust, the communism and socialist movements and the fascist movements were secular, that's like saying that the communist and fascist movements were done by non-golfers. All the non-golfers, the values of non-golfers killed all these people.
I didn't mention fascism. I was specifically talking about an atheistical movement, initially known as social democracy, later known as communism.
That literally doesn't matter what I said. So again, pay attention to what I'm saying here. Saying that someone does not believe in a God as an influence for an action is like saying someone does not play golf, and that is the influence of their action. So you attributing their deaths to secularism as if the values of secularism caused that is like saying the values of not playing golf are what caused that. There are infinitely many things that those communities did not do. They didn't play polo. They didn't go to the Arctic and catch whales. They didn't do a lot of things. The fact that they also didn't believe in a God can't be an inspiration for action. You can't attribute it to secularism because secularism isn't a motivational principle.
So my response is built. Hold on. Okay.
Go ahead.
My response is built on the idea that secularism, at least within this argument, aligns itself with atheism. Okay. Atheism, every atheist movement is essentially secular, correct? Now, you can even have a religious society that's partially secular.
Were you not listening? So again, what I said was atheism and secularism is not a set of values or motivations. You can't use a lack of something as a motivation to do something. If you want to say that the people communists killed was motivated by atheism, then there would have to be something, some principle in atheism that would attribute those actions, that would cause those actions.
The biblical standard. That's what it is. Tossing away the biblical standard and reinventing the wheel ethically. That's what caused those actions. Now, secularism.
Stop. Wait, stop. So again, that's false. So again, you can't say tossing.
We're going to disagree there. Absolutely.
Whoa. So this is the problem, is that you have taken a small selection of people who have a particular ideology, communism, and that communism motivated them to kill people, and then you've done a correlation versus causation fallacy. So also they didn't believe in a God. Therefore, the fact they didn't believe in a God is the reason they did these things. Now, you would have to provide evidence for that, and you can't because it's been proven false in every scientific journal. Wait.
I mean, you're making these statements so matter-of-factly, and you're not allowing me to respond.
This has been proven. This is not even up for debate. Like we have published papers that have proven this, and it's logically easy to prove. A non-position cannot motivate. You have to have a positive position to motivate. So saying that the communists, saying that communists' killings were due to atheism is like saying it was due to the fact they did not play golf. It's logically impossible.
Please let me respond. Negative. I mean, you're speaking a lot more than I am. It should at least be 60-40. And right now it's like 80-20.
More than me.
Oh, well, that's actually not true. That's actually not true.
Go ahead. Talk. I finished my statement. Go.
Sure. I mean, I think the huge problem you're making, the huge error, is in some way saying that secularism in some way aligns with your position when there are religious societies that are also secular at the same time. However, this discussion is atheism against religion or the belief of the God of the Bible. So perhaps you should stick to the original conversation instead of like moving the goalpost.
Literally none of that was what I said. Like, what do you think my argument was there?
Atheism, by definition, secularism that's not religious, a secular society that's not religious, is essentially built on nothing. It's moved by the person's heart. By definition, your side doesn't hold anything as concrete, correct? Right. Ethically concrete.
Right. So there's no values built into secularism.
Communist societies are probably the best example, speaking in your behalf. Societies built essentially on nothing, right, that left a trail of blood and carnage. I don't think that's too hard to understand.
No, because they weren't built on nothing. They were built on a whole bunch of values, like Marxism and communism. Those are values. Those are value systems that have values in them that aren't secular. They're not atheist values. There are value systems in those political economic systems, and
Not
those
values, they were
values
ideology.
caused.
They had an ideology behind them. And even that ideology shifted because nothing was grounded on anything. From Lenin,
Why are you interrupting?
from Marx
it
to
seems
Lenin.
like you don't understand the argument here. Like this is a solved debate in academia. If you're just wrong,
Yeah, but you
everyone
keep on
knows you're
saying,
wrong.
yeah, but you're
Yes,
quoting.
this is
Yeah, but you
extremely
keep on
common
saying it's
knowledge.
solved. This
Yes,
how
this is solved.
this
It's like 1 + 1
discussion
= 2. We
should be
solved this.
based on reason and logic, not because I could say the same thing you're saying. This has been solved.
Yes. I'm explaining to you why this is solved.
All you're telling me,
I'm gonna mute you.
you have to
I'm gonna mute
explain
you.
it to me.
I'm gonna mute you.
Okay.
I've literally been trying to explain this to you the whole time. This is solved. Atheism can't motivate because, for the reason you said, there are no values there. There's no values in atheism. So atheism can't motivate anything because it has no principles to cause you to do anything. What can cause you, if you don't have any principles, then so you can have something else. Something else can cause you to do something. Like if you're a communist or a cannibal or something, or a Christian, you can have those values that are built into those systems can motivate you to do things.
And I
But
disagree with that, by the way. Atheism
what?
could motivate. As a matter of fact, people who hold nihilistic, i.e., values, which is, I mean,
Nihilism
phrase
isn't
this.
atheism.
People who hold a nihilistic approach, just let me finish my point here, typically dislike those who claim to have a purpose, who claim to have a standard. So it does motivate. This is why the left is motivated to attack the right every turn they make. Why? What's motivating the left if they don't have a Bible? Just the hatred of anyone else claiming that they do have a better path. So
Literally no one. That's no one. Literally no one. You're talking about no one. No one has that position. No one's like on the left, I hate the right because they have a moral
by
system.
definition.
No one.
Antifa,
no one believes that.
BLM. I mean, the left is more hated to hate the right.
Why do you think they hate the right? Because it's not because they have a moral system. That's not the reason. There are lots of people.
That's the main reason.
No, it's not.
Secular people get frustrated.
Moronic.
Like
that's
atheists
literally moronic.
Okay. Well, there you go. Insulting me again.
Wait. Yes, because what you said is so asininely stupid.
Okay.
If you're right, let's assume you're right. Shut up. If you were right, I'm going to mute you. Stop.
Okay. All right.
If you were right, and the left I muted you so no one can hear you. But if you were right, and the left hated people because they had moral values, then they would hate Hinduism because they had moral values. They would hate Judaism because they have moral values. They would hate everyone in the world who had moral values, but they don't. Why? Because that's not the reason. The reason Antifa and Black Lives Matter hate those other groups is because they do things that harm them. They impose their moral values on others without consent. Moron.